We do have two excused absences, and I'll tell Sue that too when we have our regular meeting. We're going to start off with Phil Kroll. He's just going to give us an update on the FY24 budget.
That budget memo was also posted online for folks to be able to take a look at the responses to those questions. Council, we have a few follow-ups. I have a few directors here if you have additional questions regarding the budget. But this was for you to have one more conversation before you go in for first reading, just to see if we can clarify anything that you might have.
Anybody have any questions? I mean, just a recap.
So
If you could just recap I think the important part, Phil. I'm pulling it up right now here too, but what the revised increase on the mill rate is. I think it's 2.81.
So we did not make any changes to the FY24 budget. So that's still as presented. City manager's budget hasn't changed. So that's still, if you were to use the valuation of where we are currently, that's an 81 cents increase on the mill rate. As I put in my memo, I think that I spoke with the city assessor today. I've spoken with the finance director. There were no major shifts within valuation, so it's not like I could point to something that came off our rolls, tax rolls, to demonstrate that we would have any major reduction in our valuation. If anything, we felt that a conservative approach would be an additional 15 million on the valuation. And so that obviously would be a reduction on that mill rate where we're proposing right now would be 81 cents if it stayed the same. And then that obviously would be reduced. But it's an arbitrary number. It's what I've talked about before. We do not try to give you a hard number on that because we just don't know what it is. We won't know until June. Nothing changes with that. By the time that process is completed, it'll be June. So it's good to be able to know that there was nothing that's going to the mill rate will not be any higher than that 81 cents as proposed in the manager's budget. But it will be reduced based on valuation. So I can answer any questions of that. Then when we're done FY24 budget, then we can talk about FY24 CIP. Councilor Gary.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. When you talk about people's properties, the valuation's gone up. So that's extra money that we have in our coffers when we do the budget. Have you figured out, first blush, how much it has gone up on the people's property tax? I mean, we know how much the mill rate, when we increase it, it's going to be $1.50 or 50 cents or something. But how much, in other words, if we're raising people's property values, they got to pay a higher tax, whether we raise the mill rate or not. Can the public afford a big increase in their evaluation, the tax they got to pay, on top of what we lump on them for what we need to make our budget work?
So just to clarify, there's no market adjustment for properties, single-family residents in this year. There's none anticipated. So valuation won't change for single-family homes. What will change is what we shared. The city assessor had come in and talked about multi-units. So multi-unit property adjustments will take place in this when she completes the assessed value for this year in June. But single-family homes, no change in property values.
See, I'm concerned about the two-family homes where people live on the first or second floor and they rent out the other one. Will they be able to afford the taxes, the new valuation, as well as what we put on them?
So those properties are catching up. So we do break things into categories when the city assessor takes a look at market rates. A lot of it depends on what is the market dictating. So single families experienced that last year. So those are the adjustments that were made. There were no adjustments to multi-units. So those multi-units, now this is the year for their adjustments. If you go back prior to, Taylor Pond had received the same a few years ago. I think we phased that in over a 2-year period. But so that's how those adjustments work. So those multi-units will now be receiving the same, similar, not the same, but similar type of market adjustment that single family experienced last year.
And then the other thing is, I'm concerned, if it's true what I heard, that the state didn't fund the tax break for the seniors.
So I monitor that pretty closely. I did not receive any alert that they are not doing that. I believe there's several bills that are being brought forward. There's probably 3 or 4. That's whether or not the tax stabilization for seniors bill will be repealed, or if it will be just made adjustments within that. But I have not heard any update that has, unless it happened just this afternoon. But I have not heard that that's been repealed. But I do expect there to be some potential adjustments to that, if anything. And I think some of those adjustments might be that there might be an income standard that's applied to that incentive. But that would not take effect this year, because those tax stabilization credits are already being planned. The assessors are already working through all of those currently. So that would be in a future year. Whether or not they say that goes into effect in July of 2025 or even 2024, I'm not sure. But I would say there's probably 3 bills that are currently going through committee process right now that's looking at that. And so we'll see what the final outcome will be.
Thank you.
Yep.
And they did also increase, I think it was initially funded with $5 million. I think it's up to $14 million now. We'll see how long that lasts, or if it'll cover everything. But to your point about, I think you're getting at, Councilor Gary, is the manager talked about $15 million in new value. And that's new value that didn't exist in the previous fiscal year versus an add-on. And just put it into context, last year we approved $73 million of new projects. That's new value. That just doesn't all get built in a day, of course. So as that continues to come through, we'll keep realizing it. I think this year, looking at it and just talking with all of you and all of our meetings and just in the city management, economic development, we're looking at, this is a stark example of, we've cut 12 positions. We're in the beginning phases of austerity. We have high inflationary times. And while they're going down, it's still high. And the fact is, unless we start growing our value to keep up with the rates of inflation, we can't keep cutting, or else we're going to start cutting to the bone. And there's definitely an escalation of a cutting curve, where when you start cutting a couple positions and not adjusting for cost of living with staff, that you start overworking a smaller number of people, and then they rapidly leave. So it's not a gradual down slope, if you would. It's a cliff. So I think this is a reminder to the council and staff that we need to be bringing massive amounts of new value to the city, or else we're going to continue to increase mill rates. I did send and share with the council and staff a pretty good article in the Portland Press Herald from Saturday, I believe, talking about other peer cities throughout Maine, Westbrook, South Portland, cities of similarities with Auburn. They're facing anywhere from 6 to 8% increases in mill rate. Right now, we're looking at, I think, worst case scenarios, 81 cents, which is about 3.5%. And I do want to caution the council not to just look at the increase in the budget, because even though the budget's up, a significant chunk of that is reimbursed to us in the form of revenue stream to reimburse for the high school bonding. Okay, so it balances, if you would. But we're looking at about a 3.5% increase in the overall mill rate. And manager, please correct me if I'm wrong.
No, that's correct. And the city assessor, as I said, we had a conversation today. I think a very conservative number is $15 million increase on evaluation, which would be a reduction of 16 cents on the mill rate, or a 2.8% increase on the mill.
So about half the level of inflation for the previous with the trailing 12.
Yep.
Yes.
More than that.
Okay, just to put it in context as we get ready and have some time to think about this before our votes and further deliberation tonight. Is there any other questions or from council? We did get some, and thank you, Phil, for sending that Friday, some pretty good updates with regards to operational budgets and a further memo on IT expenditures today as well. So
All right, we can move on to CIP.
Yeah, please.
So at the workshop, the request, it seemed like there was a few that were looking at whether we should reduce $500,000 from the CIP request. Sorry if I can't make that a little larger for you. Here we go. Oh, sorry, wrong table. There we go. So we did make some adjustments. Many of the councilors talked about the carpet replacement for Auburn Hall. We are, let's see, I think we moved into Auburn Hall in 2004, so we're coming up on 20 years in this building. So eventually we will need to make some upgrades to some components of Auburn Hall, but I think the team has done a good job of maintaining Auburn Hall, and after 20 years, you'll see that there's very little wear and tear. But the key here is about the reason why we're talking about the carpet replacement is rather than you getting one large sum of all the upgrades that need to take place, the thing that we hear often is, why aren't we maintaining the facilities that we have? Well, this is about maintaining those facilities. So, but I understand this is a year where you want to reduce that. We'll reduce that from CIP. That was an $85,000 reduction. We also reduced $100,000 on dangerous building demolition. That's because a project that we thought was going to happen next year will most likely take place this year. We have funding that's in this year's budget, so we'll be able to take and address that building. Police vehicle replacement, we reduced $50,000, which is approximately one additional vehicle. The rescue trailer that was set up for that was proposed for fire, AvCog, who we work very closely with, had a trailer that they put out for bid. We were able to bid on that trailer. We were able to pick up a trailer that will be used. It's a used trailer, but it's a solid trailer. I think it'll be in good use for fire. I believe we were able to pick that up for less than $5,000, I believe, $4,500. So that was a good purchase. We were able to do that with some operating amounts that we had because it was less than $5,000. The rubber flooring at Norway Savings Bank Arena, we were able to take that out of CIP and move that into operating. Traffic calming, pedestrian safety, we took a look at the projects that we have currently, some of the matching, if we needed to bring more matching into that. We currently have $200,000 from this year, so having an additional $100,000 will help with any DOT matching, but we also have another DOT matching that's under engineering if a certain project came up and we needed to tap into that, so we were able to reduce that by $100,000. Talked with the director of the LA 911. They have decided to move their server infrastructure to FY25. So we were able to reduce that. That $150,000 was our half. So Lewiston had also budgeted $150,000. They've reduced their share. So that'll come back before you in FY25. The LATC bus, LATC committee has moved forward. About every year we do allocate around $50,000 for infrastructure being buses for LATC. As we build that fund up, then replacement buses occur. There's about a 24-month turnaround on buses currently for purchasing. So the committee made that decision to move forward with that. Our share to be able to complete that purchase is an additional $50,000. Most of the buses are matched, are covered rather from FTA, so the Federal Transportation Authority. So that's where most of the funds come from our bus purchases. These will be electric buses, so this is moving forward with an electric option. That was something that the committee had worked with and felt that now was the time to start moving on that because we're talking about a 2-year window for that turnaround to come back. And so this also helps us get into a good position with working with DOT on some recharging stations. And so taking a look at infrastructure and where that would be located. So we're working through that with the state. The comprehensive plan program, we were able to reduce that by $40,000. There's nothing specific to that. Comprehensive plan implementation is when a study comes up and we need to fund a study based on ordinance change or something like that we might be working on. That's where we pull that from, so we reduce that by 40,000. The airport master plan, this was something that came forward. There's a memo that was provided to you. So there's been some work being done regarding some projects at the airport. Jonathan Lamonte is here to answer any questions you might have on that. You have not seen that before, so we introduced that and brought that in. And then we made the adjustment to contingency to bring that again. We try to keep that the bond amounts at an even number. So that 32,900 rounds out the bond to an even 13 million. So questions on those? I did put a description on each one of those, so you had those in the memo as well.
A police vehicle? One vehicle at $50,000?
It's, so it's always a moving target with the cost because it's what we receive for our trade vehicles. One thing that the PD has done is they've changed the way they purchase and trade out vehicles. That's something we used to bid separately. Now we use one company, I believe it's out of Massachusetts. Police chief is not here because we have an active threat with a standoff going on today. So he and the rest of the team is over off from Galander. So they're working on that. But I believe it's out of Massachusetts is the company that we now use. When we do bid out, we still bid out the purchase, but the retrades are through that same process. We tend to get a better return on our trades by doing this. They also outfit the vehicles while they're there. Before those used to come, and then we'd have those done independently. We've been able to save a lot of costs on outfitting the vehicles. So when I say one vehicle, it's about the cost of a vehicle depending on where the trades go. But the chief will work on that and take a look at where those numbers come out when they put the bid out.
Councilor Walker, does this
Yeah,
satisfy your intent?
Yes, great job. I think you did a great job with it.
If we have enough time, we're going to move on to the second item, unless you're not done. If you want something else you want to cover,
As long as you have nothing else to cover, I'm all set.
we might come back as it pops into our head, but we also have it as an agenda item as well tonight. So,
Yep.
with that said, we'll move on. If everybody's good, we'll move on to Eric Cousins and a brief in on the Lake Auburn progress that we're making, and then we have 2 executive sessions. But again, if anything pops up, we can always reconvene back on budget and talk about that before then.
Switch to the open mic. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and City Council. We wanted to take this opportunity to go over the package of improvements to the ordinances of Lake Auburn, our Lake Auburn watershed ordinances. We've had those on hold, and they've been added to over the last year by the Planning Board and Council. And I think we have a really solid package of watershed protections up for consideration now based on council direction. That'll go to the Planning Board most likely starting in June. So I wanted to take this opportunity to make sure that the package is complete. The council added a couple of changes a few months ago. Those most recently added were considering changing the agricultural zone within the Lake Auburn watershed to be a conservation or protection zone. Most notably, the change in that would be the elimination of the allowance for single-family homes, accessory to farms, or other uses that are allowed in the zone, and also the elimination of the allowance for large animal farms, which were identified as one of the most significant potential threats to water quality within that land. Over the last year plus, we've worked with the Lake Auburn Watershed Protection Commission, City of Lewiston, through the Lake Auburn Watershed Protection Commission, and the Auburn Water District to discuss these changes. We've held community conversations, not recently, but within the past year at the Senior Community Center to go over these. And we've really worked hard to come up with a package of improvements that reduces the amount of development potential within the Lake Auburn watershed, that uses science, best practices to treat wastewater, phosphorus control, as well as other land use requirements, and has standards that are transparent and easier to understand for property owners. I think one of the bigger changes that relates to that is we've, for a long time, have used the septic system standards to limit the number of buildable lots or density within the watershed. This package includes changes to minimum lot sizes so that any increase in buildable lots that's created by a septic system changing is offset by a larger lot size requirement for any new dwellings. So we do end up with a net decrease in the amount of potential homes within the Auburn watershed as part of this. The memo that you were given was also an opportunity to try to bring all of the, or many of the information resources to one document so people can find them easily. We're really hopeful that people will look at these changes on their own merits, look at the science, and really give them careful consideration, because I think it is an opportunity to reduce development potential, but also to make sure that any development that does happen in the Lake Auburn watershed happens in a way that's better for the environment than it has been with some of the existing standards, and also that are easier for property owners to understand. I think that's a great opportunity for the Auburn portions, but I think it also creates an opportunity where we might be able to convince some of the upper watershed towns to adopt some of the similar standards. Maybe not all of them, but potentially some of them, being based on best available science and best practices. The city has already adopted phosphorus control ordinances. That's done. That's not part of the current consideration. That's already in place. I think the city has done a lot to encourage housing outside of the Lake Auburn watershed. We still have work to do based on the comp plan for that, but that does relieve housing pressure on more rural areas and in particular the watershed for this discussion by allowing for that opportunity in town where we have water and sewer. The subsurface wastewater standards, there are about 50 new systems under the current ordinance, about 270 grandfathered systems. One of the biggest impacts, I think, of this standard will be that even the existing grandfathered systems within the watershed will have to be replaced at a higher standard than they had before. And by higher standard, a greater separation between the bottom of the septic system and the groundwater or bedrock or clay that forms the limiting factor. Currently, we require soils that are 36 inches deep to exist on site, but then we require the septic system to be set 12 inches into the ground, 12 inches below the organic horizon. Whereas you'll see in the memo from David Roque, who we hired for part of that work, most of the wastewater renovation or treatment happens in that organic layer. So we've actually been building systems that sit below that and infiltrate water, but don't necessarily provide high-quality treatment or renovation. Recognizing that that will create some additional buildable lots, we're looking to change any of the 1 acre residential zones to 3 acres, cutting the density down to a third of what would have been allowed on those lots. I think, although we didn't know exactly what LD 2003 was going to allow for or mandate at the time, that change can also limit the number of dwelling units on individual parcels that have existing homes, because you would be able to apply the 3 acre density to everything but an accessory dwelling unit going forward if those changes pass. So also helps limit the impact of that housing within the watershed. We'll be asking for LawPEC to take a more active role in permit reviews. We work with them already on certain elements, but we'll be looking for them to take a more active role in the enforcement and permitting moving forward. Considering implementing a subsurface wastewater inspection program that would require inspection of systems, new or existing, every 5 years or upon sale of a property. That was a recommendation of the 2010 watershed management plan that hasn't been implemented, but it sounds like there's an appetite for doing that in partnership with increasing setbacks from the lake or tributary streams for subsurface wastewater systems, agricultural uses, and tilled fields. There's an element of that already in the ordinance that applies to certain soils. This would apply to every soil, increase that from 300 to 400 feet from the lake. 73% of the watershed is in the agriculture resource protection zone. That's the Auburn portion of the Lake Auburn watershed. Not allowing housing in that zone would significantly limit the potential for new housing within the watershed on 73% of the lands. And it would also play into how LD 2003 applies the way it's currently written. So it would no longer be a zone that allows housing. So you wouldn't be able to build the 2, 3, or 4 units on vacant lots that it would allow for. There are other pieces of legislation that may impact, but I think the surest thing now is to look at the rules as they exist, and that would be a significant reduction in buildability in the watershed. Would also limit animal farms. I think we'll have to work through the details on whether that's all animal farms or animal farms over a certain size, but right now, animal farms of any size could happen in the Lake Auburn watershed. The southern end of the lake, the 2010 comprehensive plan first introduced this idea that topography and groundwater, topography has changed because of the mining on the southern end of the lake. Groundwater through at least part of the pit, we think a majority of the pit is moving away from the lake based on monitoring data from the landfill and from the pits. This package would include potentially changing that watershed boundary to match the best available peer reviews that we have at the time that that's considered, to create some opportunity for development in what is currently mapped as part of the watershed, but we know does not drain towards Lake Auburn, so technically it's not in the physical watershed. Currently, you could sell access to soils that meet the watershed standard. The new changes would require the systems to be placed on the property that the system is serving, with few exceptions. The exception would be an existing home that would otherwise become unoccupiable based on needing a new system. There's a built-in exception for that, to partner with the water district in reviewing those cases one by one. I think it makes a lot of the standards easier to understand. Uses lot sizes to create density limitations instead of the septic standards that are hard to measure on a watershed-wide basis, how many lots there are. And it does reduce the overall development potential. So I think with a lot of uncertainty around LD 2003, I think this goes a long ways towards addressing that, as well as the long-standing issues in the watershed that the lake has changed. Water quality has changed over the last 20 years. The latest report, draft report on water quality, notes that there isn't a significant change in development patterns since 1997, but there is a significant change in water quality. I think these standards could be a step towards trying to reverse that, even though we can't change climate impacts and warming, shorter ice-ins, longer open water, and warming temperatures. So with that, happy to answer any questions or take any feedback.
You have anything? Anybody have anything? I think this is a great, summarization. Thank you. And then, just to reiterate, you mentioned a lot about 2010 and before. A lot of these solutions have been talked about, studied, proposed, going back how far?
Yeah, we looked at the 2010 comprehensive plan and the 2010 watershed management plan. There are a lot of elements here that were in those documents. Some that weren't, but a lot of them that were.
And with regards to septics and modernization, wasn't Mr. Rourke working on that back in 2005, was it? Or
he was advocating for a change then, totally independent of any city effort, but he was advocating for the change in that was during a period when the science of wastewater disposal had changed significantly, shortly before that. And if you remember the old PERC test, a lot of people still refer to it. It was really if you could dig a hole and put water in it and it went away quickly, that was a great spot for a septic system. Unless you live by a lake. But there's a lot more science to it, and this change standard would require the building up of separation from the groundwater, but with a specific soil that slows the infiltration and allows time for treatment.
Any other questions?
Yeah, a couple questions. Eric, under the current ordinance, with these changes that you expect to come on the watershed, do we know roughly how many lots would be 3-acre lots? Did we ever get a number on that?
I can get that exact number. So if we changed all of the rural residential, are you looking for the net reduction, or we can get that number? I think we had that number, and I don't have it off the top
Yeah,
of
you
my
may
head.
have had that number. And do they require frontage, and could there be subdivisions? Those are a couple questions I had a constituent ask.
Yeah, so there can be subdivisions, and there could be afterwards. There's nothing in the standard that would prevent a subdivision. I think we limit that potential pretty significantly by having the residential strips that we have at 450 feet deep. There's not enough depth. In most cases, there's not enough depth to justify building a road to create a subdivision. But there's certainly the opportunity for an existing lot with a lot of frontage to be subdivided currently and afterwards, but afterwards it would be a 3-acre minimum. Currently, it's a 1 acre in those areas.
Yeah, I had a constituent over the weekend ask me, about the gravel pit. And just wanted to reiterate that, in fact, the plan, when things are time to move forward on the gravel pit, it's going to be all on public, it's going to be on the sewer, and it's all going to be on water.
Yeah,
And it's all
public
gonna be
water and public sewer.
Public water, public sewer. Because
Yep.
someone didn't realize that. So I just wanted to make sure that, it's not in the watershed, but it's also going to be on public sewer, public water.
And currently, about 75% of the pit, we could give the exact number for acreage, is grandfathered from the mining standards. It was existing when they were created. And there's no reclamation requirement. There's no provision to mandate that on the grandfathered portions of the pit. And I think more concerning is that, blasting to bedrock does occur and will continue to occur. This is also an opportunity to give that pit a new use that will no longer be compatible with blasting in bedrock.
More, that was the question. It was a little unclear on the blasting, and I'm assuming in your report it was meant to discuss what's currently happening as opposed to what would happen related to development.
Yes.
Is that's the concern. A couple of people with geology degrees have expressed to me concern about blasting and then that potentially changing the watershed beyond what it's changed over the years based on the blasting creating fissures and cracks that could infiltrate the watershed. Yeah.
Yep. I don't pretend to fully understand that, but it's a risk with blasting.
And they're blasting now. They have been blasting
They
for
have
60
been.
years.
Yep.
Okay. Well, if there's no other questions, I'd like to thank Eric. You've been working on this for almost 19 years now, in one way, shape, form. So thank you for that, and especially thanks to LawPac. And as things come together, recognize, I think that we all have to recognize that we've got some consistency and memorandums and votes at LawPac that have representation from City of Lewiston, City of Auburn, and the outlying towns supporting these initiatives. That just happened, I think, 2 months ago. There was a vote, and we
Pretty recently. Yeah, we can provide that letter as part of the planning board review.
I find it, I think everybody should know that the members from Lewiston are actually members of their municipal government. Their city manager, I believe their treasurer, their director of public works, are all supportive of this. And Auburn Water District, former Councilor Titus is here, Trustee Titus, and Steve Milks is president. Y'all have done a really, really good job kind of shepherding all this in front of some significant opposition. But I think the more we talk about this, the more people see that this is something that should have been done incrementally years ago. It's now getting done now. So thank you very much. Thanks all for
Thank you.
being part of that. Really
Mr.
appreciate
Mayor,
it.
I think that it'll be important for us to provide that documentation, because as you said, all, support of all. I just want to make sure it is defined in the actions that they took, what did they did support. So it's important to note that, so.
If there's nothing else, we're going to move into executive session. You know what? Before we do that, we do have some time. Does anybody want to go and revisit the budget talks again or CIP talks again? Is there any further questions that have popped up? None? We will have further time later on tonight, too. Okay, thank you. Now, I'd like to entertain a motion right now to enter into executive session to discuss or pursuant to 1 MRSA 4056C, which premature disclosure would prejudice a competitive or bargaining position of the city. This is for economic development. Do I have a motion? Motion from Councilor Walker, second from Councilor Hawes. All those in favor? We are now in executive session. Whoa. Okay. What? Well, hold on. We're not live. We're live? Okay. I'd like to call to order this meeting of May 1st, 2023. Please stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Hey, happy May 1st, everybody. Welcome. We're going to get right into it with our consent items. We have 3 of them. I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion, Councilor Walker, second from Councilor Hawes. All those in favor? Opposed? None being passes 5-0. I'd also, like to just let the clerk know that both Councilor Moran and Councilor Staples have excused absences tonight. Next to the minutes of the April 18th regular City Council meeting, are there any corrections? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the April 18th, 2023 regular council
So
meeting.
moved.
Yes, second.
Councilor Hawes, second from Councilor Walker. All those in favor? Opposed? None? Okay. Passes 5-0. You guys can be quick. Now on to communications, presentations, and recognitions. First off, I'm going to ask Glenn Holmes, our Director of Community Development, to come up, please. And I'd like, if he could be joined with, we have a lot of folks, community partners, that are coming here as well to speak tonight. So I'd like to give them this time to talk about our community development block grant funding.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, City Council. Every year we come before you, and later in the agenda, we're going to talk about the Community Development Block Grant. And this year, instead of doing a presentation, we thought if we had some of our partners come in and kind of tell you a little bit about what they do and how we coordinate with them. And I also wanted to introduce Amy Hatter, who is our new CDBG manager, been here for 7 months, all the way from Kentucky. So she's a new Auburn resident. She lives just right up the road. So we're looking forward to that. So she's going to just introduce everybody, and then we'll get going.
Thank you, Glenn, and thank you, everyone. So tonight what we decided to do is introduce you to a lot of our partners and community organizations that we fund, just so you can see firsthand, what the money is going for. So I'm going to go ahead and say who all is going to be here, and then they're going to come up and introduce themselves. So we have Elise Johansson. She is the Executive Director of Safe Voices. We have Heather Davis and Patrice Curry with Seniors Plus, Fatuma Hussein with IRC of Maine, Melissa McEntee and Jeff Tardif with Rumford Group Homes, John Hodge with Housing Resources for Youth, Sasha Anna stays off with she's our McKinney-Vento liaison here in Auburn, Catherine Saunders with Auburn Adult Education, and Jennifer Hogan with Community Credit Union. We've given each of them 2 minutes to say a little bit about their organization. So we'll let Elise come up first.
Hi, I'm Elise Johansson. I'm the Executive Director of Safe Voices. We are the Domestic Violence and Human Sex Trafficking Resource Center that serves Franklin, Oxford, and Androscoggin County. I'm assuming most of you know who we are and the work that we've been doing since 1977. I'm really happy to be here tonight speaking to you all. The City of Auburn has been a partner of ours for many, many, many years. We actually received some funding for one of our shelters here in Androscoggin County. We actually have 2 shelters in Androscoggin and 1 now in Franklin County. We run transitional housing programs, so for people who are living in our community and now have to leave their home or flee because of domestic abuse and violence or human trafficking or sexual exploitation. We work with people in finding new permanent housing. We also provide a tremendous amount, able to be home more when schools were shut down or people were not able to go to work or now they work remotely. They have more access to the victims and their family. Oh, okay, thank you. Oh, what'd you say? I have 20 seconds. 30 seconds. So we are just finishing our resource center in downtown Lewiston, which will serve all of the residents of Auburn. So thank you for any support that you all give to our organization moving forward. Thank you so much.
Good evening. Thank you for having us here this evening. My name is Heather Davis, and I'm the COO of Seniors Plus, and I'm here with Patrice Curry, who is our Director of Nutrition at Seniors Plus. The overall goal of Seniors Plus, which serves Androscoggin, Franklin, and Oxford County, is to assist older adults and adults with disabilities to age well so they can stay at home independently as long as possible. One of the ways we do this is through two of our most important programs, Meals on Wheels and Information and Assistance. Over the decades, we have helped thousands of individuals fight hunger through our Meals on Wheels program. Food insecurity, nutritional status, emotional well-being, and socialization are highly interconnected and play a vital role in the lives of older adults. Most of the clients served by us live on a fixed income or low income, or both, rely on Medicare, Medicaid, or Social Security benefits. These clients are homebound, unable to prepare their own meals, and do not have available assistance to help with meals. Many are socially isolated and rely on the social interaction that a meal delivery and wellness check provides to them on a regular basis. During FY 2022, we assisted 183 unduplicated Auburn residents, providing a total of 24,496 meals. We also enable older people and adults with disabilities to remain at home, working to ensure their health and wellness, to fight isolation, and to provide a trusted resource for their questions and concerns through our Information and Assistance program. These programs enable our highly trained staff to respond to a myriad of questions, from housing to caregiving, veteran support, Medicare counseling, scam concerns. Our vast educational programs provide many other options. Helping to assist people to stay in their homes also helps to reduce taxpayer dollars, keeping these people happy, healthy, and feeling less isolated. In FY22, 591 Auburn residents benefited from the program, representing 2,203 hours of service. Your support helps to address the needs of food, entertainment, social interaction, and assistance for these Auburn community members, thus helping them remain in their homes for as long as possible, which is where people want it to be, and helping them to live better and healthier lives. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Fatima Hussein. I am with the Immigrant Resource Center of Maine. I know a number of you there. Hi. Since 2002, August 2nd, 2002, when our offices opened here in Auburn, we have worked with the City of Auburn in many ways. Let me remember, from school to police to training to education to anything that was needed for the influx of the Somalis that were coming at the time. Today, we provide services in more than 14 languages. We have given a lot of resources to the City of Auburn. Last year, we provided the cultural broker services and funding to the City of Auburn. Right now, we are also funding the diversity, equity, and inclusion position. We have also, we're also bringing a navigator, housing navigator, so I'm gonna focus on that. I don't know how much time I have. Thank you. The navigator is going to really look at housing needs for the Auburn residents. It is going to provide stability services. That means childcare, employment, housing, interpreter services, English services, whatever that you need to be able to be stable in a home. What we're trying to do is end homelessness in Auburn. And so that fully funded position is going to be here for almost 2 years. And that means we work with general assistance offices here in Auburn to be able to serve the residents who are coming to look for services around housing. The last thing that I'm going to mention is we're a culturally specific domestic and sexual abuse center. That means we provide culturally and linguistically appropriate services when it comes to domestic violence, dating violence, sexual assault, trafficking, thank you, and all the services that bring victims to our doors. And so I am also a resident of Auburn, so I should say that. I should mention that I live in Auburn, and so it makes me, as a proud resident of Auburn, to be able to provide services to the children, women, and men, and anybody who comes through our doors. And so I think this new partnership is going to really create an avenue for housing resources, and that means we also provide gap funding to the rental assistance that they get through general assistance. Thank you so much.
Hi, my name is Michelle Worthley. I am the program director for Rumford Group Homes. I'm here with one of my staff, Jeff Tardif. We recently opened up a homeless shelter in Leeds on March 29th of 2021. We have started collaborating with the City of Auburn, which has been a great resource for us to start working with some homeless families. Jeff is the one that's mostly working, doing some outreach with them.
Yeah, so, well, thanks for having us, Mr. Mayor, City Councilors, Auburn City staff. As you know, my name is Jeff Tardif, and I used to do the general assistance for the City of Auburn for a couple of years. Prior to that, I was the manager of the family shelter in Portland, and like Michelle had mentioned, currently working with homeless men, women, families right here in the Auburn area. There's quite a few, actually, and so super excited to work with the Auburn Business and Community Development Department so we can do some good work here in the future. So, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, my name is John Hodge. I'm here representing Housing Resources for Youth. I'm the chairperson. In my day job, I'm the executive director of the Brunswick and Topsom Housing Authority. About 3 years ago, about 8 years ago, many citizens in town got together to deal with this issue of homeless youth. And when we talk about homeless youth, we're talking about unaccompanied youth. So primarily, we're looking at high school age kids that have been homeless. And homeless is a different definition for people, but essentially they're not at home, they're couch surfing, they're looking for places to live. It's a very difficult population to identify and try to serve. You don't have many shelters. You have one in Lewiston, one in Portland for youth, but they're full and hard to get into. We also knew that in our communities, people were taking in kids. It's been happening all throughout our lives. We see people do that. A friend would, hey, Mom, can a friend come stay with me? So we looked around and we found a program, I think it was in Minnesota, that was just starting as well, called Host Families. And so we identify these youth, we identify people that are willing to take these youth in, and then they bring them into their home. So it's not a state-sanctioned program, it's just helping a neighbor help a kid. So we do a very thorough job with our case management to identify the youth, make sure they're suitable for this type of housing. We do a very thorough vetting process to make sure these kids are going into a safe home. To date, we've had about 8 to 10 matches. All of the kids have graduated high school. That's really one of the reasons why we've done it, because we know if they're going to succeed in life, they got to get that high school done. And then also 92% of them have gone on for post-secondary education. So this is new to us. We've just been, we reached out to see if we could come to Auburn. And so we're excited to be here and look forward to reaching out to the Auburn community. Oh, thank you. And so we look forward to that. And, you know, we're definitely excited to work with the schools and help identify these youth. And we also need host families, so if anybody's interested, give us a call.
What's the name of your organization again?
Housing Resources for Youth.
And your name, sir?
John Hodge.
Okay, no,
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Sasha Anastasiov, and I'm the McKinney-Vento liaison for the Auburn School Department. I work with youth within our school department, pre-K through 12th grade, who are experiencing homelessness. Part of my job is to remove barriers for the youth I work with around accessing school and education. Through the partnerships with the City of Auburn's Community Development and Public Health Departments, we have been able to move in a positive direction of removing barriers for Auburn's students. Successes through our partnerships have included finding new ways to secure housing for unaccompanied youth who are experiencing homelessness, connecting families who are at risk of losing or who have lost housing with housing resources to secure stable housing, connecting households in need of basic necessity repairs on their homes with options to get things fixed, such as a furnace, referrals to community agencies for employment search, support, and removing barriers to employment like transportation, clothing, daycare, driver's education, and job searches, supporting families when they need follow-up with other agencies around basic needs such as getting oil into their homes, rental assistance, emergency housing and utilities support, and access to food and clothing for youth and families through local agencies. I look forward to continuing to work to address still current needs around how to safely support all unaccompanied youth who are experiencing housing needs, increased access to affordable housing for our families in Auburn, decreasing the time it takes to access medical and mental health supports like case management, counseling outside of the school setting, and substance misuse counseling and support, transportation for after-school activities to and from school for youth residing out of district due to experiencing homelessness, and a point person to help follow through all types of referrals from start to finish, including housing, medical, and mental health needs. Thank you for having me here tonight.
Hello, my name is Catherine Saunders, and I am the Assistant Director of Adult Education for Auburn, Maine, and I spent 20 years prior to that working at Franklin Alternative. So I've worked with at-risk populations in education for Auburn for the last 23 years. I wanted to first thank you for allowing the CDBG grant to happen. It has allowed me to remove the biggest barrier to students in Auburn in the adult education program, and that's transportation. So we have partnered with LA Cab to get students back and forth to class in the evening. There are no city buses that run in the evening and none that come to Edward Little. So we have been able to help 14 students receive their high school credential, either HiSET or diploma, by having that transportation. There are some nights that I have anywhere from 5 to 12 students who are transported by cab back and forth to school so that they can finish their high school diploma. Of the 14 students that graduated, all but 2 have applied and enrolled in college. The other 2 are working full-time at really good companies in Auburn, which is our goal, is to either get them into the workforce and keep the city thriving, or get them into a program for college that they want to do. We have also been able, with the influx of English language learners in the state of Maine and in the city of Auburn, been able to get those students back and forth to conversational English classes that we've been able to add this evening, this semester. The hope for the future in the new Edward Little High School would be that we have access now to add workforce programs for students, and eventually the workforce program will fund this service that we're providing. So in the meantime, we are able to connect with New Beginnings, for example. I do outreach there. 10 students who experience homelessness received their diploma with adult education because they were able to get back and forth to school. So it is the #1 barrier for folks at night. Thank you for your time.
Good evening. My name is Jen Hogan, and I'm the President and CEO for Community Credit Union located at 40 Stanley Street in Auburn. One of our primary focuses is to create financial well-being for all, and the City of Auburn has been an incredible partner with us. Financial well-being for all is about giving people control, capacity, and choices when it comes to their goals in lives. And financial health and well-being are deeply connected to every part of our life: housing, access to food, transportation, education, health, and the list goes on. In late 2022, we developed a new program known as the Community Cornerstone, and Auburn City staff served on this committee and assisted with its development. Through this program, our Financial and Life Navigator works inside businesses and meets with community members to assist them with overcoming barriers and connecting to resources. Dellen worked with the UU Church in Auburn. At that time, it appeared there was little planning to support the unhoused population throughout the winter. 8 months later, Dellen is still working with a few individuals on securing housing. Auburn has a lot of resources to assist, but there's still a long wait list or limited opportunities to work with caseworkers who can further help. On a regular basis, through our branches and the Community Cornerstone, we help individuals secure childcare, connect people to food pantries, refer individuals for mental health services, and more. Mental health services continues to be a huge challenge, and we've had to resort to referring people outside of the state. We also do a lot of financial coaching on a variety of topics. We're working on some programs that we're hoping to partner with the City of Auburn on, including establishing and repairing credit for individuals, helping individuals obtain citizenship, and also working on a Sharia-compliant mortgage program option. The foundation for a lot of this work is the Bridges Out of Poverty model. Community Credit Union serves as the backbone organization for the newly reinvigorated committee, in which the City of Auburn also serves on. Combined, all of this work is helping to assist moving individuals from instability to stability and creating financial well-being for all. Thank you.
would just like to thank everyone who came to talk about their program, and especially to thank the council members for your time tonight.
Yeah, thank you. And sitting here, and I just want to thank, on behalf of the city council, thank you all, not just for being here tonight, and thanking us for appropriating, or hopefully appropriating you money this year, but for being here and giving us a little explanation. And it was dawned on me that, this group is, I like to call it a curated group of people that are really focused at really ending generational poverty. And then we've got the Meals on Wheels. And by the way, my grandmother gets your meals, thank you. She loves them. I've eaten a couple, not bad. But really ending generational poverty. Homeless youth is something that's near and dear, and this council has talked about it for quite some time, working towards ending homelessness, making sure housing stock's there. But I just want to thank you, but also turn it back to the council. As we hear these stories and hear these mission statements, we have to ask ourselves internally here, are we doing everything we possibly can as a council, as city government, to tear down the barriers for your success and for the people you help their success? Writing a check is great and it's important, but unless we're creating an environment for people to build more housing, for people to get on their feet, for people to have access to opportunities that others already have, I don't think you'll be as successful as you could be. So that's a question that we have to dig deep inside of ourselves and make sure we're doing our part. So you keep doing your part, and hopefully we'll keep doing our part. So thank you very much. Okay, we're going to move along on the schedule, or the agenda, excuse me. Next up is communications. This is for counselors to communicate to the public about situations or events that are news that's going on that might be of use. We'll start over here to the right. Councilor Gary, anything?
The only question I was asked, if we set up programs like the one that you had set up about helping people do their, the plans and the whatnots for the second houses, that we have a follow-up to know if there's been any inquiry and if there's been any money put into it.
I actually have a meeting with staff tomorrow morning at 10:30 to go over that, and I'll report back on our next meeting.
Thank you.
Have a Jane's Walk, which is New Auburn, Lost and Found. Jerry Dennison and I will be meeting in downtown New Auburn by Raleigh's Diner at 9 o'clock on Saturday. It's about a 1-hour tour of downtown New Auburn, and you'll learn more than you could have ever imagined from Jerry. He knows a lot more than I do. And then we end up at Barker Mill, and people can see the architecture and get some coffee and goodies.
I just want to take a moment to thank first responders, specifically for today. I mean, we had some storms and everything, and then we had some, activity here in town, and I just want to wish them the best and thank you for keeping us safe. So we appreciate it.
I just want to reiterate, had a constituent ask me about the potential Grace Lawn development, and I wanted to just let folks know that there's some sewer development things that are necessary, but that development, all intentions are that that's going to be on public sewer, public water, and there's some things that the sewer department and the water department need to do to add capacity into that area. That's being done, and the city and the water department and the sewer department are working well together. So,
good.
Just wanted to
thank you. Councilor Walker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want people to know out there that the age-friendly committee group worked very hard at trying to make sure that we feed some of the people potatoes that come from the Bell's Farm. Anytime you want potatoes or need potatoes, you can come to the Senior Citizens Community Center and you can get potatoes. They're in 5-pound bags. I deliver almost every week. They are 400, 500 pounds of potatoes. And we pass them out to anyone that needs them. You don't have to be young, you don't have to be old, you just need potatoes. If they don't have them there, you ask them to call me and I'll make sure they get there. Either I'll bring them myself or Bell's Farm will deliver them there if it's need be. So if you're hungry for potatoes, don't be afraid to come down there. They're always on a table down there. You just grab 1 or 2 bags, take them home, give a bag to your friend, whatever. But we have the program in place. The City of Auburn finances it. So come and get potatoes when you need them.
Did you want to give an update? Then I've got one.
Sure. Thank you, Mayor, Council. So I will give an update, just that we do have an active threat in Auburn currently. We have Police Department, Public Works, Fire, all working on that active threat currently. For those who, I'll make a plug for Code Alert, a red alert rather, Code Red, I'm sorry, Code Red. That is our reverse 911 system. Anyone in that neighborhood of where that active threat took place received a text alert or a phone call, a recorded message regarding that active threat with a description of if they're in the immediate area to shelter in place. This is a great resource. In the past, we had a reverse 911 system that just went to landlines. Many residents in our community no longer have landlines. And so because we have Code Red, that's a great resource. I encourage people to take a look at accessing that. If you, like I said, if you lived in that radius and you had signed up for that, you received an immediate alert regarding that. So our team is on site. Please be patient if you're traveling through Park Avenue. There's areas where you can't get through because of this. There are means to get around that. Be kind to our people, Public Works, who are out there trying to do their best to protect the public. They have been, it's been challenging for them redirecting traffic. So just be mindful of that. Our team is working with state police currently, and we hope to resolve this in a safe manner for all parties involved. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. A couple things. First of all, Auburn Lobster Festival, unless you've lived in the ocean under a rock like a lobster, which they're hiding from us right now. We know it's happening Saturday, starting at 1 o'clock at Festival Plaza. The weather looks absolutely wonderful. You can go auburnlobsterfestival.com. Please purchase your lobster dinner, shore dinner, lobster, clams, corn, potatoes for $29, okay? Proceeds of which is going to be split between the Auburn Exchange Club, who is hosting it, the Auburn PAL Center, Police Activity League Center over in Chestnut, and the Maine Lobstermen Association to help with their legal defense fund. So it's going to be a great event. There's 3 feedings. Please go online, order your tickets. They're going to go quick. So, and it also helps us know how many lobsters to go out and harvest from the river. So, it was a joke. They're not coming from the river. Maybe further down. Second, Auburn School Board has and this should go on a report soon, but I want to make sure people hear it now. Auburn School Board has a meeting to finalize their budget on Wednesday of this week. I'd like to remind you all that it's very important that we turn out to vote on June 13th, thank you. June 13th here at Auburn Hall on the school, the referendum for the budget and also for the bond. You're going to see, and I want to clear up some confusion, there's going to be an amount that we're asking the citizens to vote on for a bond. We have to take the bond out to tear down the old Edward Little and finish some remediation and cost overruns. But that amount will fully be reimbursed back to the city of Auburn by the state of Maine. We do have to approve the bond though, okay? So it's a zero cost to the taxpayer, direct property taxpayer in Auburn. So just want to make sure that's clear. That is it for communications. And at this end, we're going to move along the agenda at this point. First open session of the night. Members of the public are invited to speak to the council about any topic directly related to city business, which is not on tonight's agenda. If you could, please step to the podium and just give us your name and address and limit your comments to 3 minutes. Okay. Sir.
Hi, Rudy Wing, 499 Penley Corner Road. It's not my first visit here, but it's nice to see that work's being done. Thank you, Mayor, and distinguished staff that's been putting efforts to work on the agricultural sector here in Auburn. We need to do what we can to protect it so we can grow some veggies and some good quality products to take care of our communities. My struggle's been long, 19 years with my property over there. I think you guys are fairly familiar with what my situation is. I'm on my property. I go there every day. I work every day. But I'm currently homeless over at the Veteran Inc.'s facility in Lewiston, which is a fantastic program for veterans. I'm amazed, to be honest. I've lived on that property on 499 Penley for 19 years, in and out of a camper. Had a fire, lost my life. It's nice to see that some common sense is coming back to the community to look at these special situations. Every lot, every house, everything has a situation. And it needs to be observed for the sanity of the people that have that property, for whatever need they may need to sell a piece of property or what have you. This is going to be big for them. So I'm looking forward to coming and working in the workshops. I understand on the 7th and on the 15th, I guess, are workshops. I'm going to come and hopefully give my input and hope that, hopefully I can get on my lot and get my life going again. So appreciate your time.
Oh, sir, the work, that's fine. Just, planning board is bringing this up on the 9th of May, which is Tuesday. Correct, 9th of May, okay. Nobody else? I'm going to close the first public session. No, now on to unfinished business. We have ordinance 03-04-182023, which is amending chapter 60 of the City Ordinances, section 60-145B8, use regulations by changing the lot size requirement for a cemetery from 20 acres to 10 acres, if the cemetery is a conservation cemetery. It's a public hearing and a second reading. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Motion, Councilor Walker, second.
Second.
Second from Councilor Whiting. Open this up to the public. Is there anybody in the public that would like to speak on this? This allows natural burial plots to happen on land that's less than 20 acres, which our comp plan and current ordinances require for a traditional cemetery. Okay, bringing it back to the council. Council debate? None being, I'll ask for a vote. So roll call vote, please. Actually, show of hands. All those in favor? Oh, is it roll call? Okay. Roll call, please.
Counselor Gary,
Yes.
Counselor Whiting,
Yes.
Counselor Hawes,
Yes.
Counselor Milks,
Yes.
Counselor Walker.
Yes.
Passes by a vote of 5-0. Next is ordinance 04-04-182023, amending chapter 60 of the City Ordinances, section 60-2. Definitions. By adding the definition of a conservation cemetery, it's a public hearing and a second reading. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Councilor Walker.
Second.
Second, Councilor Hawes. Anybody in the public like to speak on this? This is just reaffirming the definition of what a natural cemetery is. None being, I'll bring it back to the council. Council? Questions, debate? None? I'll ask for a roll call vote at this time.
Counselor Gary,
Yes.
Counselor Whiting,
Yes.
Counselor Hawes,
Yes.
Counselor Walker, I'm sorry, Counselor Milks,
Yes.
and Counselor Walker.
Yes.
Order passes by a vote of 5-0. Okay, now on to new business. Next is Order 58-05012023, authorizing the city's general obligation bonds in the amount of $13 million to finance the city's fiscal year 24 capital improvement program. It's a public hearing and first reading. Second reading will happen at our next meeting in May. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Walker, second by Councilor Hawes. Open this up to the public for comment. This is a public hearing. Anybody in the public like to comment on this? Please give us your name and address and limit your comments to 3 minutes.
Good evening, Andy Titus, 24 Rubelite Lane. First of all, I want to commend the staff and council at the workshop. I noticed that you did whittle away at this capital improvement bonding, and I really appreciate that. Always could do more, but one item that's of a concern of mine is this $3 million to completely rebuild Engine 2. And I don't know if there was enough debate that went on about that. I know it was talked about public safety meeting and at a presentation, which included a huge project, not just that one. So I don't know if you've had enough information on that. But the other question I had too is there's another $1.1 million that was unbonded CIP. I don't remember you voting for the entire CIP. I know you did the 5-year plan, but I don't know that you did the FY24 total CIP. I see tonight you're voting for the bonding portion, but I'd be concerned about that 1.1 million that's you're going to find in cash. So, thanks.
Talk about that later. That's right. We'll address some of these questions later, of course. Is there anybody else in the public that would like to comment? None being, I'll bring it back to the council. Council, CIP. started at 13.5, she's down to 13. Additional monies that would be appropriated from other fund balances, Mr. Manager, correct me if I'm wrong. You'll see that at a later appropriations. Any comment, debate, discussion?
Just want to thank the manager for doing the job of getting it done.
Okay. At this time, I am going to ask for a vote. Let's do a roll call. It's only 5 of them.
Counselor Gary,
No.
Counselor Whiting,
Yes.
Counselor Hawes,
Yes.
Counselor Milks.
Yes.
Counselor Walker.
Yes.
Second. Just a second. Wait there for a second. Okay. Passes first reading 4-1. Next is Resolve 01-05012023, adopting the appropriations resolve for fiscal year 2024. This is a public hearing and first reading. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second?
Motion, Councilor Walker, second from Councilor Hawes. I'll open this up to the public. Is there anybody in the public that would like to comment on the annual appropriations budget? None being, I'm going to bring it back to the council. Council, and this is our operating budget for the year outside the CIP. Do we have any comments, questions, concerns, amendments?
I'd like to make an amendment.
Okay, hold on. Motion to amend?
Motion to amend. And with regards to, previous workshops we've had and items, I wanted to amend that we, and I realize that this is going to upset some people. And
Just give me the
some
motion,
people,
please.
Yeah,
And then we can
I will.
discuss
All right,
later.
then I'll discuss it after. So I'd like to make a motion to eliminate the recycling program.
I have a motion on the floor to eliminate the citywide recycling program. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Councilor Hawes. Now, I'm going to open this up to the council for debate. Please, Councilor Milks, you made the motion.
In our workshops, there's been quite a bit of detail given. Ultimately, the main reason is that, and I realize that many people have put a lot of time and effort into this program. However, the program is not working effectively for the amount of money that it costs. And that's ultimately the reason that, given the situation, the fiscal situation that we are in, I feel that that is pertinent and practical.
Okay.
And I believe, Mr. Manager, you've got some stats if you could reiterate those statistics, that, for instance, I know one, that there's only 6% of households that are currently engaged in the recycling program.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I'll certainly answer any questions. I think that just so the council understands that the amount that you're looking at reducing by eliminating recycling will be, from the budget would be $227,000. As I mentioned during the workshop, it does take a lot of effort to stand up a recycling program. Once removed, it would be challenging to stand back up as you move forward. Those are moving costs. I think as Councilor Milks mentioned, I believe we shared in the workshop that we're looking at somewhere around $144 a ton currently for recycling materials. That's up drastically from where we were in the beginning of the year. If council does move on this matter, I would recommend not to reduce the budget amount by the nearly $250,000. As was also mentioned in the workshop, Casella, who is our current waste collector, has implemented a mandate. It's not just a mandate on the City of Auburn. This is straight across with all municipalities, towns, that you must move to having a standard waste receptacle that they will now use an automated system to collect our waste. So if we were to purchase those, if recycling is not included, then it would just be one container, and that one container, to provide that one container for the residents of Auburn, you're looking at $500,000. And so if you were to eliminate this, I would recommend that you keep this in the budget. We'll reserve those funds for the partial year this year. we have worked with Casella to ensure that this requirement would not take place until after the fiscal year. Also taking place after that fiscal year is the agreement with Casella ends, and so we'll be working with our SNRB committee to help us in developing our RFP when we go out for a new bid. Historically, it's only Casella that responds to that, but I think that it's still due diligence. I think we should continue putting work into that. We should put certain components within this bid as SNRB. The recycling committee originally had discussed regarding education. One of the challenges that we have with our solid waste is the amount of food that's disposed of. That's a very wet material that costs us more as we're processing that. So that's why we stood up as council supported, standing up the food composting collection. I think that's an area that we should expand on and make that more accessible and work to make that take place. But I would suggest that if you were to move forward on this, that you would reserve that $250,000 in the budget to pay for half of the containers. The following year, same amount allows for that, again, that additional $250,000 that could be used in July of 2025, FY25 budget to purchase the other half. So you've heard the thoughts during the workshop regarding the importance of keeping a recycling program and the challenge on standing one up in the future.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. And just for a point of clarification, you can keep the amendment as is, and then when you remove that program and that money, then you can make another amendment, adding that back in for this specific, if you wanted to act on the manager's recommendations. A little bit of clarification. Some of you were here when we looked at this 2.5, 3 years ago, with the SNRB did a deep dive, and it was very good. It's very eye-opening. Some of the data, and we can pull this so you can look at it again before the second reading. And I just want to also remind you, anything done tonight can be undone in the second reading as well, okay? Or if it's not done tonight, it can be done in the second reading. But participation was approximately 6 to 7% of the population in Auburn actually recycled. We do have single stream recycling, which produces an end result at the facility that's dirty, if you would, highly pollutant, and the commodities market has still not rebounded since pre-COVID. What does that mean? We put the trash in the recycling in the blue container. It goes to Casella, goes in a truck that drives around every street in our city twice a month. That's obviously, you have to wonder how green that is. But I just want to make sure you have all the information. And then if we're not recycling this, if the commodity's not there, if there's no price point, this gets shipped to Juniper Hill up in Old Town, Orono. It's landfilled. Conversely, if it's put into our stream through MWAC, it's burnt. The metals are recycled. All types of metals are recycled. And clean electricity is produced. 10,000 homes a year, approximately? Okay. And we've gone through this. I'm giving you the very brief synopsis just to help bring you up to speed on this. But again, any questions, debate? Councilor Guerra, start off with you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. When you're talking about having to get new bins for the trash and this stuff, is there a way that we could defray the cost if we could get business sponsors and put their name on the bins?
So you did that when you started recycling? You had bins that were sponsored, I believe, by Maine Metal Recycling, and there was a few other ones that were sponsored on those small little green tote-type bins. It doesn't mean that you couldn't continue doing something similar. I think that could certainly be explored.
So by eliminating recycling now, we're actually saving $500,000 on additional bin costs that we'd have to incur to provide the recycling bins, because there are different colored bins, different companies. So it's not just saving the $227, it's also saving the future expenditure of $500,000 for another bin, recycling bin for every household in Auburn. So is there any debate upon this motion right now? Any other debate? Comments? Support?
I support it, but just a comment. We will take all of the recycling out to the energy saving And we're talking only $42 a ton. We're not talking 120 something like the manager said, which is a big savings right now. Doesn't mean that down the road, cardboard may come back and may surprise all of us. But at this point, there is no market out there for any of these products. And if they don't go to a landfill, they should at least come to something that we own half of the business, that we can produce electricity to sell on the grid.
Any other comments? Sounds harsh. I got to tell you, I'm having a hard time. I've had many conversations with people, including my own wife about this, who's an avid recycler. But when we look past getting it picked up on the side of the road, we realize what's really happening out there, stuff that's beyond our control. I think that's the information that we need to convey out to the public. So, with that said, all those in favor of the motion of Councilor Milks and seconded by Councilor Hawes of eliminating recycling program, please raise your hand. Those opposed? Those opposed? It's you, all five. Okay, I'm sorry. Passes 5-0. Now, towards the manager's point earlier, if there's any motions to reapply this money into a sinking fund, if you would, or just a line item for trash receptacles, for the future purchase of trash receptacles, we can entertain a motion on that end.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion from Councilor Gary and a second from Councilor Whiting to reappropriate $227,000 plus or minus from recycling towards the purchase of updated garbage bins, one per every household in the city of Auburn. That applies. And I have a second. Any conversation, any cost or discussion on this?
Is that a requirement? That we provide that? That the city provides that, or is that?
It's not, it's a requirement that Casella will not pick up waste without that container. And if you were to try to implement this, I believe, without providing those bins, we would have a considerable waste management problem on our hands.
Thank you.
Okay, any other discussion, comments? All those in favor of the motion on the floor? Opposed? None being passes 5-0. Okay, still on the budget. Is there any other comment, modification? Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I know the staff has worked hard. I know the manager has. I'm not sure if we've done all that we can. I cannot support the budget with it the way it is, with the conditions that Auburn is facing.
You want to, great comment. Could you elaborate a little bit on this? Could you give us a little bit about the conditions that Auburn's facing?
The cost of everything our families and single people, seniors, are going up through the roof. As they're paying, most of the people that do pay taxes, in order to contain costs, we're cutting some services. Programs that we're implementing, the staff is increased. I know that there are some positions that are going to be vacant or are vacant that we're not going to fill. I believe, and I mean no disrespect to our employees, because I'd fight for them with everything I got, but I have a feeling we have by far more people today than we did even 2 or even 4 years ago. And I don't think we really worked the budget last year enough to bring it down so that we would have a cushion to work this budget.
Open this up to any ideas or any further comment. At this point during the readings, if we have any motions to amend, if you want to specifically, remove positions, this is where you do it today. And while you're thinking about that,
Can we also, remove items in the second reading?
yes.
Okay.
Again, Councilor Whiting, go.
Yeah, I just wanted to state that I heard an interesting comment from, I think it was a city manager, who's, maybe I read it in the paper, but the comment was that, city governments are not exempt from the inflation that everybody else has. And so I think it's a credit to the staff that they're coming in under the rate of inflation and better than most of the other municipalities this year. And while we'd like it to be less than it is, it's cut down pretty, steeply and we're eliminating 12 positions, which is not insignificant. So I'm comfortable with it.
Yeah, we're at a stage, we keep talking about it too, and I want to make sure that we're all clear. We talked about it in the workshop. We're looking at a 3.5% increase to the mill rate at this point. When we're looking at a very conservative, thank you, Mr. Manager, thank you, staff, and assessing, especially in finance, for looking at historicals and looking at a very conservative $15 million growth in value, that would bring our increase, our mill rate to 2.8%. Now that's combined, intergovernmental, school, and municipal. And I will give a big thank you to the school department, though they have not finalized or approved their budget yet. They have done a very good job keeping it in line, and I don't want people to misconstrue their increase in budget as anything but an increase in reimbursed cost for the high school bonds. And the addition is what the people voted on, okay? So they've been very, very careful, and we all need to make sure we're not joining all those different issues together, because some of those are beyond our control. With that said, we're looking at 2.8% potentially net. That difference in $15 million in new valuation to everyone's tax rate is huge. And if we want to continue to lower taxes without diminishing services, and I've yet to hear anyone tell me which services they want cut, we're going to need to grow value. Stable Ridge, Phase 2, for example, will bring in approximately $120,000 in net taxes, not including excise tax annually. That's significant. That's significant enough to drop our mill rate by 4 cents. It's a pretty substantial percentage. Same thing with Kitty Hawk, same thing with these other new housing developments, new growth in our commercial sectors that are desperately in need of people. And we just heard how much money, and we will hear more how much money we're spending to help end generational poverty. And the two things they need are skills, which are happening at our high school, the 94% potential graduation rate this year, which is unbelievably high compared to just what it was 3 years ago, to housing. We have to accomplish both. So I'll leave that. I just want to make sure that we have all the information. More importantly, the people understand the predicament we're in. We can continue to stop development and increase taxes, or we can increase development and start decreasing taxes. Still a long way, though. Any other comments on this before I ask for a vote? Councilor Gary.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to make a motion to amend this budget to cut our salaries back to the way it was at $1,800 for our counselors, and the money, the $4,000 a year for the mayor. I'm not going to go after the school committee because they were low person paid, but I would cut if the planning board is making the same salary that we are making today, I would like to cut them down to the $1,800 a year as well.
I understand what you're saying, and I'm having a side conversation. With all due respect, I'd like to ask if you could hold that to next meeting, simply because we're not sure if that's a budgetary issue or an ordinance issue, okay, within ordinance. I think we do need a little bit of...
Yeah, so Mr. Mayor, you are dictated by certain ordinances, and this is one of them. So we'll get clarification for you, but currently your ordinance says that you have to fund these positions at the amounts that are in the ordinance. And so your budget has to reflect either what you're mandated by your own ordinance or state statute. And then the council can certainly adjust other line items.
But according to the charter, we cannot, a sitting council cannot increase their salary as long as they're sitting in office. But there's nothing in the charter that says we cannot cut it.
So it has to be an ordinance, but, I think that, we'll explore that. We'll make sure we come back with a full response. But I believe right now, without reading it and looking at it, currently, the directive is by ordinance. And so, but we'll get that clarified for you, and certainly, if there's no second on that motion, I would say that we'll have that for you at the second reading.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor, unless it's withdrawn due to legal constraints. Do I have a second? None being, motion dies. Okay, we're going to move, oh, we're still on it, I'm sorry, still on the main motion. Is there anything else with regards to the budget? Operating budget. None being, I'm going to ask for a roll call vote at this time.
Counselor Gary,
No.
Counselor Whiting,
Yes.
Counselor Hawes,
Yes.
Counselor Milks,
Yes.
and Counselor Walker.
Yes.
Passes 4-1. Okay. Next is Resolve 02-05012023, supporting Congressman Golden's initiative for a federal budget agreement that would begin dealing with a serious problem of ongoing federal deficits. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Councilor Hawes, second by Councilor Whiting. Open this up to public for comment. Anybody in the public like to comment at this time? Anybody in the public like to give us an update on this morning's congressional hearings? How are we doing on the budget? It seems ever-changing. Bring it back to the council. I will say, regardless of political party, affiliation, proposal, anything, for the last 5+ years as I've been mayor, and before then too, that's just as long as I can remember, the City of Auburn and Auburn Council has not weighed in on anything that has not directly affected them, i.e., we weigh in actions in Augusta, we don't weigh in on actions in Washington. Not to say that precedent is hard and fast or there's a rule, but I'm just saying that we haven't exceeded our kind of purview, if you would, on this.
Could we get a little clarification on exactly what Congressman Golden is asking?
I don't know.
I can address that. I got some pushback from constituents about it. Why is the city council talking about it? And my reasoning for presenting it, along with Councilor Staples, is that, we have to pass a budget, and we have to balance our budget every year. The state has to do the same. The federal government keeps, finger pointing between the parties, and one party is, using the debt ceiling as a leverage point. The other party is not wanting to negotiate on that. And I think Representative Golden's approach is to get both parties working together. And I thought of the Three Stooges, where Moe used to take Larry and clunk their heads together, and that's what I view this as, sort of a city council nudge to the federal government to, do what it should be doing. And I think, Congressman Golden is right on target with it. And he's proposing, looking at, budget caps. And I think it's tied to inflation, so they're not like as rigid as perhaps some of the more fiscal conservatives would like, but it's basically trying to get through this so we don't default on our debt, which is just stupid.
No other comments? I'm going to ask for a vote on this.
I just would like to comment that I'm in favor of budgetary responsibility. But at this point, I am not going to support any support of federal legislation that I don't know anything about. And I'd be curious why Congressman Golden is doing it now when he had 2 years to do it with a majority. So I don't want to bring national politics into municipal politics, and so I'm going to vote against this resolution.
Could I just clarify that this is not legislation, and I would be absolutely opposed to us weighing in on that. We could spend all day, between the state legislature and the federal government. This is just a process where people can actually talk to each other like we do every meeting. And sometimes we don't agree, but we get it done. And that's what they need to do. And that's why I presented this.
At this time, I'll ask for a vote. All those in favor of the resolve, please raise your hand. All those opposed? I break the tie. I oppose it. Oh, Councilor Walker, you're in.
Point of information, he was in the room when the vote was taken.
I'm sorry. Yeah, now he's back. I'll ask for the vote again. All those in favor of the resolve? All those opposed to the resolve? Fails, 3-2. And on that, Councilor Whiting, I'm glad you brought this up, and I think everybody needs to work together, absolutely. And I hope they do. I really do, and I applaud Congressman Golden for trying. So we'll move on to the next agenda item. Modifying the Auburn-Wilson Airport Interlocal Agreement. This is Order 59-05012023. Modifying the Auburn-Wilson Airport Interlocal Agreement. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Second for Councilor Hawes. Open this up to the public for comment. Are any members of the public that would like to speak? If so, please step up to the podium. Give us your name and address. And while we're waiting for someone to speak up to the podium, I just want to let you all know there's a letter here from the Executive Director of the Chamber of Commerce supporting this adoption.
Mayor, City Council. My name is Mark Blay. I am on the airport board. I'm also a pilot, and I also own property at the airport as a T hangar. So I do pay taxes and excise tax for the airplane. So a couple of things were brought up about the structure of the board, and I'm not sure I'm opposed to this change, but I will say that a couple things were brought up, like conflict of interest from non-sponsored versus sponsored people. In other words, people at large. And right now, Lewis and Auburn is going to use it as employees only, which is sponsored. And that was a description explained by the FAA grant assurances. Well, the FAA actually showed up at the airport. We had a discussion. And part of this, I believe, was reference to a FBO study. And that study, I can make a case that was very biased. I was the one who actually asked for the study in the first place. In an open meeting, I discussed that the then manager had reservations on doing it because obviously it would affect his job and that he should not administer it. And he did administer it. It came back very biased. He had a very bitter point of view towards the board because he couldn't do what he needed to do. Since then, we've had Jonathan Labonte come on. He has spent a lot of time, research. He's resolved a lot of problems. He's found even more problems than what we thought was going on at the airport. For this here, to take off the two pilots that are on the board, off the board at this time, is very bad optics to the pilot community right now. The other thing is, I talk to Jonathan on a regular basis about different things. Today was the hangar doors, and there's an appropriation for that. So I have a lot of technical expertise. I'm actually building hangars at other airports as we speak. So I have a lot to bring to the airport board. I know there's been a lot of contention at the airport, but there's also been a lot of misguided board members. If this was 2 years ago, I would absolutely agree. That board was very dysfunctional. In the past 3 to 5 months, I have never seen a more cohesive board than we have now in 15 years. The two pilots are an important part of the airport. They have an insight that no administrator could possibly see or know or even have interactions with other pilots. So I think to remove pilots at this time is really bad optics. I think it sends a bad message to the pilots. My term ends in January. I am probably not coming back. I'm pretty sure I'm not coming back. It was a lot of work for me, a lot of personal grief that I suffered going through this whole process. But I think the optics right now is really bad. We're on a good trajectory. We have a good master plan. It's going in the right direction. And I think it's bad timing.
Thanks, Mr. Blair. Appreciate it.
Tom Ward, Jackson Hill Road, 60 Jackson Hill Road. I've been at the airport with Skyward Aviation as a business for almost 30 years. I've seen services in the last 10 years since the city has taken over. It used to be a fixed base operator, privately owned, go downhill. Finally, in the last couple of years, they are moving forward to improve customer service and moving to make the airport more sustainable and safe. This new agreement will not allow outside personnel or pilots on the council for their input as a step backwards. How many of these city personnel actually know anything about the daily operations or regulations associated with running the airport? From what I've seen at all the meetings I've attended in the last 30 years, not much. Having at least some impact for non-city personnel is important to keep a balance at the airport. Thank you.
Is there anybody else who would like to speak on this? None being? Okay, bring it back to the council. Council, you have any questions? I think Mr. Labonte is here too to answer anything if need be, but we've covered a lot of stuff in past meetings. Any questions, debate? Councilor Whiting?
Just a comment that, I think looking at this and looking at how we've dealt with other subjects, I think we need to spend a little more time on it, and I would propose that we table it for more discussion with the affected parties. I think it's good to change the composition of the board, but maybe it's a little too radical as proposed.
With that, was that a motion to table or is that a
Motion to table.
I have a motion to table on the floor. Do I have a second?
Sure, June 30 or last meeting in June?
June 30.
June 30? Yeah.
I have a motion.
Last meeting.
Last meeting in June? Okay. So I have a motion on the floor to table to the last meeting in June. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Second for Councilor Gary. Okay, so we have a motion to amend. I'm going to turn this over to Mr. Labonte. Mr. Labonte, is there a time? Is it privileged or not? Motion to table is not privileged, I don't believe. So it's not. I mean, I think it was like happened 6 months ago. Motion to table is privileged or non-privileged? Okay, good, thank you. And thanks for bringing it up. And I just want clarification from staff on this point too. Mr. Labonte, is there a time constraint here? If you please could run us through the bridge time frame to got us here and why we need to do this now, or if we don't need to do this now.
Looks like, is this, yeah, that's on.
It's on.
I wouldn't say there is a specific time constraint. I think we're in a position where we're looking to quickly restructure the operations at the airport and looking to address any outstanding issues that may present perceived or other potential conflicts of interest. There is a broader discussion to have as we restructure the airport about how we get customers engaged, involved in giving input. Part of that will ultimately be hiring a future airport manager or director that has the expertise to be able to manage us going forward. There is a dynamic, and I'll agree with Mr. Blake, having worked with him and been through a previous presentation. The FAA does not weigh in specifically on governance structures. So the report that was issued in December, January, that called the board non-standard according to FAA grant assurances was not technically accurate. But what you run into if you have pilots or tenants of the airport also setting the rates and approving leases and directing negotiations is the potential that you would be running afoul of conflicts of interest and opening up the airport to broader issues. So the extent to which we would look to move to a staff-only model, tighten up the board to professional staff, is part of marching towards cleaning up the overall operation up there. So that the sooner we can start that and then move ourselves aggressively into setting up a balanced fiscal year 24, delaying a change if we're going to make a change certainly is going to make the process of building a balanced fiscal 24 budget a little more complicated, I think.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Labonte. So we do have a motion on the floor. Is there any other further discussion on this, Councilor Gary?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Labonte, is there a way that, I'm playing devil's advocate, is there a way that we can get the expertise that these two gentlemen have brought forward that they think is necessary to make sure that all people that fly planes are that have planes at the airport or may contract with the airport that their assurances and their needs are met?
Yes, and there's multiple ways we can get at that. Certainly governing the airport is probably not it may be the one that would be preferred right now by pilots and those in the aviation community in the room. It does raise the issue I brought up, that if we're negotiating and setting rates for tenants and customers, having those same people on the board is a conflict of interest. In the city of Sanford, the city council of Sanford sets the budget and the operating framework for the Sanford Airport. The pilots aren't doing it, the customers aren't doing it. It is a department of the city of Sanford, and they have a highly capable airport manager that's implementing the long-term plan that they have. They do have an airport advisory committee where Allison, who is the manager, convenes regularly with the pilot and aviation community to solicit feedback, to keep them engaged, to hear their concerns. And from everything I've gathered talking with her, she's accessible and listens. And I think that's part of the dynamic that I've observed, is that in the recent and not so recent past, there has not been an open door to taking criticism and feedback within the manager's office there. And I think the pilot community is feeling listened to, in part because there are pilots on the board that are directly communicating as actions come up with that feedback. So I think it's more of maybe some failed previous management that's driving some of this. And while I'm playing an acting role there, that's not the long-term solution. It may extend a little bit longer because we have some hard decisions to make to balance the budget, but the goal is to bring in capable management into the future.
Mr. Mayor, I would recommend that you end debate regarding this. The debate should be on whether or not the postponement should continue, but not the debate of the matter.
Yep, thank you very much. And that your end point before you spoke was, you said, and correct me if I'm wrong, go rewind, you want this done, or you think it needs to be done sooner versus later? Okay, thank you. Is there any other comment on the postponement? Thank you, Mr. Manager. None being, I'm going to ask for a vote on the motion to table to the second meeting in June. All those in favor of tabling, please raise your hand. All those opposed? Motion table fails by a vote of 3-2. We have the main motions on the floor again. Main motion is to adopt this order. The interlocal agreement. Is there any further debate? Councilor Walker, you made the main motion. Is there anything that you'd want to say? Okay. Councilor Hawes, you seconded it? Anything? Milks?
Question for Mr. Labonte. You're saying that the intention in the future is to have an advisory panel of some sort from stakeholders? Is that fair?
Without it, we're about to launch, and you've now added, and I appreciate that, into the first reading of your CIP, Auburn's match for our airport master plan, which is we're going to be launching at the end of summer, which is going to set the stage for what are we trying to build this airport into, and there's going to be a direct and very active role for the aviation and pilot community to help guide that process, which will set the course for where we're going. And I fully intend to have very broad stakeholder engagement.
Great, thank you. That answers the question.
Also, okay. At this time, I'm sorry, there's no further comment from the public? No, it's just behind you, Mr. Labonte. We have the main motion on the floor. All those in favor of the interlocal agreement, please raise your hand. All those opposed? Passes 3-2. Okay, moving on. Order 60-05012023, reallocating unspent proceeds from the city's 2020 general obligation bond. This is a first reading. It's a public meeting, and a second reading is scheduled for May 15th. I got a motion, Councilor Walker, second.
Point of order. I believe it should be 4 in order to pass.
For the interlocal agreement? I have no note at all on the interlocal for this. Okay, we're going to take a pause. Yeah, looks like we might need more in after all. What? Majority while we're looking for this, I'm actually going to call just a quick 3-minute recess. So stand up, flex. We still are in the middle of the debate, so I'll ask everybody in the council to kind of stay on this side of the room. Thank you. Stand up. Wow, look at that. Way too break it. I don't know about this. I don't know. I know. As a part of a lawsuit. That's right. Check. Yeah. Look at them. Oh, yeah. Pull them all up. You got more.
That's how much. Right, so. Do we need all 200? No. Public Works doesn't.
So that. No, they're not getting the whole suite. So that's included in the 6,000. Or 6.
What, 5?
So there's 77,000.
For Microsoft.
Was that in that. Oh. I'm sorry. Of that 5,000.
Brian? I need you to, I'm going to call us back in. I need you guys to vote against this. Airport. I'll tell you later. I need you to vote with them. Because we need 4 votes. We can't do it pass on 3. We can't bring it back up unless you're on the prevailing side. So you can bring this back up next meeting. So we get a little bit of a table, Rick. I think there's, in Robert's rules, before the meeting's adjourned, you can't. You can bring this back up, and, I mean, if. Okay, so, here we go. Rick, Belinda, You guys can bring this back up tonight, fail, and then we can bring it back up. If we cannot, this dies for the rest of this session. And it can't be brought back until a new council, which is gonna be late. So that's the reason. June 15th. No, that failed. Failed. I'll say again?
So let's make sure that we're not conducting city business.
Okay.
Without being back in session.
So, Rick, I'd like you to make a motion to bring this topic order back in. I'd like to call us back to order.
Yeah, I think we're in the right church, wrong pew kind of thing with this. I don't disagree with the idea that we need to reorganize the airport, but
Could you make a motion?
my motion would be to bring it back so that we can have the,
More discussion.
have more discussion, make a final recommendation, perhaps after a workshop at the second June meeting.
And I'll second it.
I'm sorry, did you, just for clarification, just so that the clerk has it
can't roll it in.
clear. You're saying a workshop after our second May meeting or second June?
Second June meeting.
Second June meeting.
Well, a workshop before before a decision is made. If we can work that. I mean, I think we have enough meetings left, hopefully.
Thank you. I got a motion, I got a second, but I want to get clarification from the clerk because I think we're convoluting, basically rolling in two separate items into one. If you're making a motion as a prevailing party per se, and let me explain to everybody, because we have two sicknesses in the council tonight, or one travel, work trip, and a sickness, we need 4 on interlocal to pass, 4 affirmative on either way. There was never an intent for this to fail long-term, so we need to make sure that we're doing everything in accordance to Robert's rules. Now, according to Robert's rules, we have to bring the initial motion back, but I don't think at this point you can add in a tabling, if you would, okay? Because what you're doing is you're postponing a final decision to June 3rd, so you're taking 2 motions and combining them into one. If you first want to bring the initial motion back, which I think we'd all appreciate, get that back on the floor, and then you could make a motion to postpone from there.
To
Bring it back on the
bring it
floor.
back on the table.
Yes.
That, back on the floor.
And then I'll second it.
Okay, so right,
So my understanding is that it would have to be somebody, whoever voted the majority would have to reconsider this to put it back on the table.
even though the 3 lost, because you need
So
4.
I move to bring this back onto
Okay,
the floor.
got a motion to bring this back to the floor from the prevailing party. Councilor Milks at that point. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. Okay, now the motion's back on the floor. We're all legal. This is, now. Second, Councilor Hawes. Okay, so now we have it back on the floor for further debate or action. Again, we need 4 votes in order for this to pass. We only had 3 last time, but the prevailing party was these 3, which is a little odd. So, we need 4 votes. This is time for debate. But then we bring it back. All those in favor of reconsidering? All those opposed to reconsidering? Passes 4-1. Okay, now it's back on the floor for reconsideration. I don't think I've ever done this. So now we have a debate. One side or the other should try to get 4 votes. That's what it needs. Please. Thank you. Okay.
I did move to table and that failed, but if we table to a date certain, then that would not be a vote against the proposal, it would just defer the decision. Am I correct, Sue?
Mm-hmm.
Move that we table this until the second meeting in June.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
I had a motion, Councilor Whiting, a second for Councilor Gary. Is there any other debate, conversation? Mr. Manager?
So I would ask Mr. Labonte to come back up, talk about what the impact is on tabling this to the second meeting of June. I'm not sure what council's intent is on taking that long to bring this back before the council. So it's important for us to know what it is you hope to accomplish from now until that second meeting of June to bring this back before you.
I guess my only issue is, in talking to people before the meeting, I felt like I had a revelation. We were presented one side of the argument, we didn't hear the other. And I heard the other, and that made me think I want to have a workshop so we can talk about it and come to a better decision. As I said before, I think we are in a good position here. We're in, like I said, right church, wrong pew, that we change the composition of the board, but maybe not as radically. Have a workshop to talk about it, include some of the people who are interested parties, so we can come to a decision that everybody can live with.
You want Mr. Levante up?
So I don't
Motion to
think,
postpone.
yeah, based on what Councilor Whiting has stated, I don't think there's anything further that Mr. Levante would add to your decision on tabling or not. But again, that discussion could happen. There's nothing that requires that discussion to wait till the second meeting of June.
Sure, and if the city manager is willing to get this on the agenda for a workshop sooner, I would
So we could
amend
have
the
that.
motion to
May 15th.
May 15th.
So I have an amended motion on the floor of
I'll
the second.
second it.
Councilor Gary?
Yes.
Okay, to May 15th, we'll have a workshop and a vote on that. All those in favor? Okay, passes 5-0. So this is now postponed till May 15th. We'll have a workshop and we'll vote. Okay, now, and thank you very much for bearing with us on that one. That was definitely different. It's always something new in Robert's rules, isn't there? We're going to keep going now. We have order 60-05012023, which is reallocating unspent proceeds from the city's 2020 general obligation bonds. So first reading, a public hearing, and second reading is scheduled for May 15th. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Motion, Councilor Walker. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Councilor Huss. I'll open this up to the public for comment. Any members of the public that would like to speak? If so, please step up to the podium, give us your name and address, and limit your comments to about 3 minutes.
Hi, Andy Titus, 24 Rubelite Lane. Unspent bond proceeds always bother me because I always wonder what we voted for several years ago that didn't happen. So I would always want to know why it didn't happen, and specifically in detail why it didn't, so that maybe we can learn from that mistake. But second of all, we just, you guys did the first reading on $13 million in bonding for CIP. But now we're going to spend this money on new projects instead of maybe carrying it over and taking care of what we've already agreed to do. And I'm not sure about the legalities about how this money can be spent, but as I understand it, unspent bond proceeds is unspent bond proceeds, and you guys can spend it the way you want to. So is it really fiscally correct to just not apply it to a current CIP that's already been bonded and reduce that a little bit as opposed to new spending initiatives? One or two councilors have talked about, it's tough times, everybody's fighting inflation. Bonding is what it costs us down the road. We're bonding today, we're paying tomorrow. Why can't we reduce that a little bit by using this kind of unspent bond proceeds to pay down what we're planning to do for this year? Thanks.
Is there anybody else of the public that would like to speak? Okay, none being, I'll bring it back to the council. Council, open this up. Mr. Manager, do you want to lead off, or?
So I appreciate former Councilor Titus's comments. I think as when he sat in your role as councilor, this is a standard practice. This is not as a result of a mistake. This is a result of budgeting, forecasting what cost of projects will be, and if those amounts are less than they come in under, then those bonds remain into the unobligated bond accounts, and then they need to be reappropriated. And so that's the work that's being done here. That's the other column that you have. Jill, go ahead and answer that further.
Well, this was also downtown incentive money, but in order to do what we want to do with it, we have to reallocate it, because we're giving, it's a forgivable loan. If they do what they say they're going to do, then it becomes a grant. And so, and it's incentive to someone to do development downtown, which is what it was originally
Thank you, Jill.
borrowed for.
Yep.
But the attorney, he's the one that wrote the whole order for me because it's different than anything we've done. And I believe he's very up on what we can and can't do, you know, so, but it is for what we originally wanted it for, it's for downtown.
No,
Thank you, Joe. Mr. Mayor, I was.
Yeah, you go.
Councilor Titus was talking about, I thought he was talking about the unobligated bonds in his original comments, and so that's what I was referring to, so my apologies.
So if you're new, about 3 years ago, interest rates are like almost in the negative. The council then decided to borrow about $1 million in order to have that set aside for any type of downtown incentives to keep working on infill and so forth. Again, something that was completely unique. We did it, borrowed the money, but now we have to figure out a practical way to apply it. So hats off to Glenn Holmes and staff with Jill and the attorneys to make sure that this is actually not just sitting there, but actually could be used for positive. Okay. All those in favor of this, or what point of order? Councilor Gary?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. When you talk about downtown, do you mean downtown around here? Or with our different zone changing, bringing the downtown way up the street?
Yeah, it's going to go to Soapers Mill, or probably going to be Jordan. No, I'm just joking. No, it's downtown. Downtown is clearly defined within our comprehensive plan, as well as in the initial order that did this. And I believe it went up to Third Street in New Auburn, down to right over here by Turner Street. Yeah, Union Street bypass.
Thank you.
Yeah. If there's nothing else, okay, I'd like to ask for a vote on this. Is this a roll call?
Yes.
Roll call, please.
Counselor Geary.
Yes.
Counselor Whiting.
Yes.
Counselor Hawes.
Yes.
Counselor Milks.
Yes.
Counselor Walker.
Yes.
Passes 5-0. Next is a public hearing to receive comments for program year 2023 CDBG and Home Annual Action Plans. I want to thank staff as well as our community partners for obviously talking with us earlier during communications. At this point, I'll open this up to the public for comment. Is there anybody in the public that would like to comment? None being? None being. Okay, I will now close the public hearing. Next is Order 61-0501-2023, adopting the CDBG and Home Program Year 2023 Annual Action Plan. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Councilor Gary, second from Councilor Walker. I'll open this up to the public for comment. Is there anybody in the public that would like to speak? If not, bring it back to the council. Council? Debate? Discussion? None being. As for a vote, all those in favor? Passes 5-0. Last open session of the night. If there's any member of the public that would like to speak about something that did not appear on tonight's agenda, please step up to the podium and give us your name and address and limit your comments to around 3 minutes.
Hello, my name is Elaine Gammon. I'm an Auburn resident. I live in New Auburn, 56 Marion Drive. This is all new to me. It's the first time I've been here, so I wanted to just say hello and thank you for all the work that you do. I also want to just mention that I serve on the board of LA Arts, and we are looking forward to working with the City of Auburn. I know that we have done programs in the past, but we're looking forward to continuing to partner with you to bring public art projects to Auburn, working on the Story Walk project, exhibit along the river, integrating any of the arts into the City of Auburn's events, and hopefully executing some art experiences connected to our local seniors and also the youngsters. So I just wanted to say hello, introduce myself, thank you for your past support, and I hope that we have a chance to work together in the future. Thank you.
Thanks, Elaine. Is there anybody else for the last open session of the night? I'll close it. On to reports, mayor's report. We're battling the legislature one LD at a time, so that is still going on. Should have some closure here in the next couple of weeks. Other than that, school board meeting again on Wednesday. Councilors? Any Any reports? Any reports? None. Mr. Manager?
All set, Mr. Mayor.
All set. We do not have any executive sessions tonight. So at this time, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn. Second?
Second.
Second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. We're now adjourned. I've been doing that for 2 years. You guys still follow?